Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. And I just want to say that I am the luckiest guy in the world because here I am in a nice, warm living room. And for the second time in just 3 hours, I get the chance to go and take you with me on a journey onto an amazing ship doing epic research in the middle of the ocean. We just wrapped up 2 hours ago with the RV Falcor doing super cool stuff off Argentina. And today we are continuing our partnership with the amazing folks at Fisheries and Oceans Canada on the CCGS Sir Wilfrid Laurier. So today we're going to go on a little bit of a journey in some choppy seas to learn about how the Canadian Coast Guard is doing some really cool work to understand our oceans. I can't encourage you enough. All year long, we are partnering with Canadian government agencies to highlight the incredible work that they and their team do, whether it's Fisheries and Oceans, Parks Canada, Canadian Space Agency, NRCan, and more. It's been an absolutely wild ride, and everything we do goes to our YouTube channel. So if you want to check out like 4,000 other broadcasts or I think probably like 400 with Canadian government agencies, you can head there and do just that. Without further ado, it's not about me. I'm so excited to introduce you to Chloe, who's going to bounce up and down on the elevator that is her ship today to walk us on a little bit of a journey of what life at sea is like. So thank you so much for joining us, Chloe, and take us away. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. And thanks for the introduction. Like you said, my name is Chloe, and I am actually from Calgary, Alberta, which I heard we have some students joining us from Alberta. So hello and welcome. I think I'm the luckiest person in the world because I get to be at sea for a few months of my year every year as an oceanographic technician at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans in Canada. So, yeah, I'm super lucky. I get to spend a lot of my time at sea. I get to hang out with my lovely coworkers, and we collect data for all sorts of different research projects. Most of our programs are focused around tracking climate change and the effects of the changing climate on the ecosystems that exist in our ocean. So we look at properties of the water itself, and those properties include temperature, salinity, which is how salty the water is, oxygen concentrations, particulate matter, and how much light can penetrate the ocean. Plus, we look at the organisms that make up the base of the food chain to see what the health of the ecosystems is like. And these ecosystems need to keep marine animals alive and healthy. In particular, we look at species of plankton, just like in SpongeBob, that evil villain Plankton. He is one of the ones that we catch here on the ship. And those plankton are eaten by all sorts of species of fish, seabirds, whales, dolphins, and that makes them critical for survival of all ocean life. We also rely on them as people because we like to eat fish. If you like sushi, fish and chips, we need plankton and we need a healthy ocean. So today we're going to talk a little bit about life on board the Canadian Coast Guard ship Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and that is where I am right now. I hope you can see the deck that we have with the waves crashing over the bow. We're going to talk a little bit about the Line P program, which is the program that I'm participating in currently. We'll talk a little bit about ocean ecosystems and what they need in order to be healthy. We talk a little bit about our sampling equipment. That includes our rosette and our bongos. And then we've got a little sneak peek of our shrinky cup experiment that we do every time we're at Ocean Station Papa, which is at the end of Line P. Okay, so here we are on board the Laurier, and the Laurier is a super cool ship. It's an icebreaker, which means that it can crash through ice and help other ships navigate safely in the Arctic Ocean. It's also really great for sailing the Pacific. It's one of our smoothest vessels, I find. So even though we've got 4-meter swell out there right now, I feel safe and sound. It was built in Collingwood, Ontario, and I've heard we also have some Ontario students, so you may know where that is. And it was built in 1986. And since then, it's traveled all over the world. It regularly goes to Japan and the Arctic, and it conducts scientific research along the way. When it's not doing science operations, it also tends to navigational buoys, and it does search and rescue missions as well. So it's a fully functional Coast Guard ship. Living on a ship is super unique and weird. We are normally here as scientists. We're normally here from 1 to 4 weeks at a time, and sometimes we don't see land for that entire time. So that means that we have to have everything on board that we possibly could need. And that includes a bunch of skilled people to keep the ship running. The ship's crew encompasses galley staff who keep us fed and happy. I kind of think they might be the most important people on the ship. We've got navigational officers who help us navigate safely and steer the ship where we need to go to do our science. We've got engineers who do all of the maintenance of all of the electrical, mechanical, plumbing systems on board. And they are truly incredible. They can solve pretty much any problem. And then we've got our awesome deck crew, and they help work all of the machinery on board to make sure our equipment goes in and out of the water safely. And they do things like operate the rescue boats as well. They're super cool. So we need every single staff member on board in order to keep our programs running. So this is our little slide about the Line P program. So this program has been going on since the 1950s, which makes it one of our longest standing oceanographic data sets. And it helps us track how the climate affects our ocean and how the changes in the climate are shown up in our oceans. So the program monitors properties of the water, which tells us about the ecosystems under the waves. And it also hosts researchers from around the world who are interested in learning about ocean physics, chemistry, and biology. And so we sample stations from near shore. So that would be this one right here. That's P1. And then it counts up. It goes through P4, P12, P16, P20, P26, which is our final station. And that's the furthest offshore and the deepest that we can go. And that's what we call Ocean Station Papa. And so this helps us gain an understanding of what the effects of the land are. So these closer inshore stations, and then what the ocean looks like when it's really far offshore and it has very little influence from the land. Here's just a little drawing I did to represent a very simple explanation of our ocean ecosystems. So we start with phytoplankton, and they're little photosynthetic organisms. So similar to plants that we have on land, these guys also do photosynthesis. So they need sunlight, carbon dioxide, and nutrients in order to do their photosynthesis and grow and produce oxygen that we can breathe and that other animals can breathe. Then we move on to the zooplankton, and zooplankton are tiny animals that eat the phytoplankton. Sometimes they also eat other zooplankton. But these guys are truly the base of the animal food web. So they get eaten by fish and sometimes also marine mammals. And then the fish get eaten by seabirds, the mammals, and us as other mammals. And so starting back at the phytoplankton, so since these guys have such specific needs, for their temperatures, concentration of nutrients, and dissolved gases, it's really important for us to measure those things. So those things can change maybe throughout the day, like sunlight, maybe seasonally throughout the year. Again, sunlight's an example of that, but also nutrients, because nutrients come into the ocean with river runoff. But these things can also change over decades, for example, due to climate change. So that could impact carbon dioxide concentrations, etc., temperature, salinity, and so on. And so it's super valuable for us to have these data as a record of the changes. So this is our rosette of Niskin bottles and our CTD. So the rosette hosts the Niskin bottles, the CTD at the bottom there, and CTD stands for conductivity, which helps us determine salinity, temperature, and depth. It also has other sensors on board that measure dissolved oxygen, fluorescence, pH, PAR, which stands for photosynthetically active radiation, which is just a fancy way of saying sunlight. It measures the sunlight. And then we have those 24 Niskin bottles. So they can collect water from up to 24 different depths in the water column at any given location. And so we fire them, we close them all. In this photo, you can see them all open as the rosette is going down. But by the time it comes back up, all of those bottles are closed. And so then once that rosette is back on board, we can subsample for a bunch of different discrete water samples. And then we analyze those for different properties. So again, just to be ultra clear, these are the Niskin bottles. CTD is our electronic sensor package at the bottom there, and the entire thing is called the rosette. And then this is myself and my colleague Lynn doing our water sampling for dissolved oxygen concentrations. So here's our bongo nets. We call them bongos because if you look at them with your eyes kind of squinted, they kind of look like those hand drums. And right down here at the bottom, they are closed. So those are called our cod ends. And as we drop this entire thing down to the bottom of the ocean and then drag it back up, it captures a bunch of zooplankton in the net, and then we rinse them down and all of the plankton get concentrated into the bottom here so that we can look at what kinds of animals we're catching. And so here are some examples of plankton. Plankton is just a broad term to encompass small animals that float freely in water. Some of them spend their entire lives as plankton, but some of them only have certain life stages that they spend as plankton. For example, when they're babies or larvae. Different species prefer different climates. So again, we see certain species that would normally live in our water column might actually be pushed further north as our waters become a little bit warmer. And then the species that are normally off the coast of California or Oregon, we might start to see them in our waters, and we do. So some of these guys, this is a little jelly, and that spends its whole life as a plankton. But this guy is a little octopus, and that's only planktonic when it's a baby. Here we have a little blobfish, and over here is an amphipod, and that's always a plankton as well. And then here we've got some little baby crabs. I think they're so cute. And so here's our little shrinky cup experiment. So Ocean Station Papa is at the very end of Line P, and it's the deepest station that we sample in the Canadian Pacific. And it is a whopping 4,212 meters deep. So if you imagine running across a full FIFA-sized soccer field 40 times in a row, that's how deep the water is here. It's the same length as 400 school buses parked end to end. And so in order to celebrate such a deep station, we have a tradition of sending decorated styrofoam cups down to the bottom of the ocean, and they're attached to our rosette. And we see how they react to the pressure of being underneath all that water. So at Ocean Station Papa, the cups experience a weight of about 700 adult African elephants sitting on top of them. So it's really no wonder that they shrink to be this size. And I brought a couple of our cups so I could really show you exactly how small they become. So this is the regular cup, and then this is the little shrunken cup right beside it.
Oh, cool. I love it.
All of the air gets packed into the styrofoam, shrinks out, and we're left with just a very compact little styrofoam cup. All right, so those are all the slides I have for you today, but I would love to take you around the ship if we still have some time for that.
Oh, we've got so much time, Chloe, and I know you've got to switch over to your phone, so feel free to bring the phone up so we can start walking around, and I'm going to encourage our YouTube and StreamYard audience, if you guys want to start sharing questions in the chat, outstanding. Lavi, I'm going to come to you live. Miss Terrian's class, welcome in on YouTube. So we're going to go on a little adventure together, see what it's like on the deck with our epic internet live from the ship. But what a beautiful deep dive into all the cool work you're doing, Chloe. That was awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, I will switch over to my phone now.
Sweet.
And we can leave this.
We're going to mute the computer while Chloe does that, just so we don't have the reverb of two devices in one room. So she's going to get that queued up. Please do share it in as many places as you'd like. All your questions. We're going to be taking a bunch over the next 30 minutes together. Looks like Chloe is on a mission. Hey, Chloe.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. I will have you turn your camera sideways if you get a chance, and then we'll go on a little adventure.
All right, and I'm just going to make sure you're seeing the back up there. Okay.
Beautiful.
So we're now entering the lab here on the Laurier, and we've got all sorts of different instruments set up, as you can see. So here we've got our underway water system going. We call this our TSG, which stands for thermosalinograph. It's quite a mouthful, so that's why we call it TSG. And so it does a really similar thing to our rosette and our CTD. It can measure temperature and conductivity, but we have it running through the ship at all times, so we can see what the surface of the water is doing all the time. So we've got different temperature sensors on here, conductivity for the salinity as well, and then we also have a fluorometer, so it can measure how much of that phytoplankton concentration is in there. Over here, we have our filtration manifold. So here we can determine concentrations of phytoplankton as well, and different species. Here we've got our zooplankton dissecting microscope, so we can look at all those critters that we get in the bongo nets. More filtration stuff here. And here we have our titration kit for determining oxygen concentrations. And so we add different chemicals in, and then a color change tells us how much oxygen is present in the water column. And then moving right along, I'm going to be swaying a little bit because of our swell. But here we are in the main dry lab. And so here is where we get all of our data from our CTD. And then we've got a nice little window here to look at the weather. It's very gray and gloomy, as you can see. And then more computers. And then it might start getting a little bit noisier here as I leave the ship's superstructure and head out to the rosette. All right, so here is our rosette all strapped in so that it doesn't roll away. And you can see we've got all of our Niskin bottles here. And then down here is where we would sample for the water. We've got our CTD right here, and it's equipped with all of our different sensors on board. And this ship is great because since it goes to the Arctic, it's got a garage door that comes down, and then we have a really nice heater right here, so it keeps us warm while we sample. And then moving along outside the decks, this is one of the fast response crafts that the Coast Guard uses in order to do their search and rescue missions. And we're heading back aft of the ship to go to the heli deck, which is indeed used to land helicopters right here in the middle. And you can see our nice swell going in the background there. But this is a really lovely place to hang out when there's no helicopter on board. And sometimes if the weather is nice and calm, we can do our evening stretching routine back here. So that's the heli deck. So let's head right back. And so this is one of our winches that we use in order to launch the rosette. And up top there, you can see the bridge of the ship as well, which is where all the navigational officers hang out and do such great work. It's going to be a little bit noisier up here, so I won't spend too long, but just want to give you some views. So this is our winch to launch things. And then we've got a lifeboat in the event of an emergency. And then the bridge is up here, which I think we will take a little tour of. So up here, we've got people hard at work navigating the ship, steering, and they have a bunch of different sensors that show all of the parameters that they need to see, like weather and heading. And they get a really nice view of the deck. And they can see all the operations happening down there. So now I'll head back down to the lab. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Super cool. Thanks for getting to show us that.
On at night so that it doesn't affect how their eyes can see in the dark. Here we are going downstairs. All right, so I'm going to head back to my computer now, and then I'll join on that one again, I think.
Sweet. We'll let you pull that up in a second, so feel free to do that, and then we'll have a nice long Q&A together. La Vie, I'm coming to you in a minute. Our YouTube audience, you guys are already asking a whole bunch of great questions, so thank you very much for that. Chloe, you're back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Amazing. We're going to start with some great questions for you, and thank you so much for the tour, deep dive, all this cool stuff that you've got on the go. Miss Terrian's class wants to know, do you only study plankton, and specifically, why are they so important?
Right. So we don't only study plankton. We do look at a lot of the properties of the water itself. So that CTD and rosette package, that's kind of the bread and butter instrument that we use on this survey in particular. So we use the CTD and we use the bongos, and those are our two main ways of collecting data. The CTD helps us a lot with the temperature, the conductivity, things like fluorescence, dissolved gases, and those things really help us gain an understanding of the ecosystem. The plankton, we like to couple those data with the CTD data to see which species prefer to live in which kinds of environments. So some plankton are going to prefer really warm and fresh environments. Some will prefer colder and salty environments. And so it's important for us to know which species prefer what type of environment in order to determine how that's going to affect the rest of the food web, because plankton are so critical as the base of the food chain. So they get eaten by pretty much everything. So the fish, and then some whales will also eat them. And then from then it just keeps going. You know, the fish are being eaten by the birds, by the whales, by us. So that's why they're so important.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chloe. And then a quick follow-up question sort of speaks to the essential nature of plankton. Do they swim? Like, how do plankton get around the ocean?
Yeah, so they're actually free floating, and that's what makes them plankton, is they can't really swim against the current. So they're following where the ocean takes them for the most part.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Miss Terrian, please keep sharing in the chat. We're going to head to La Vie in North Topsail Beach, and she can take us away with a question next. Hey, La Vie.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm awesome. So my first question was, could the shrinking cup be a way to shrink down all the styrofoam polluting our planet?
That's an awesome question. I love that. And I would strongly suggest that someone take that into consideration. It would be a little tricky to shrink it all. There might be a way to do it on land that could be potentially a little easier than bringing it out here, but I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, lots of ways to handle a lot of waste, and we can crush it down very, very well with existing technologies in landfill. So I like where your head's at. Ideally, we're not dragging all the styrofoam out to the ocean to bring it down. Might be bad for some other reasons, Livy, but I like your question. Let's see, Miss Terrian class. How long will you be on the ship? How long is the expedition, Chloe?
So this one is 11 days. Normally we spend a little bit longer out here, but we were just limited by how much ship time we could get. And so yeah, this time it's 11 days. Sometimes we'll spend 5 weeks at sea. It all depends which trip you get to go on. And we have so many different surveys that we get to participate in as well. I'm so lucky. I get to work with all different kinds of researchers. And yeah, I think I spend about 2 months of every year at sea on different ships and doing different surveys.
Yeah, lucky you. How cool is that?
I know. I don't know how I got this lucky.
You highlighted it at the beginning, but for anyone who might have missed it, what ocean are you in right now? Like where in the planet is Chloe?
Yeah, we're in the Pacific Ocean, and Ocean Station Papa is about as far west as Hawaii. So if you know where Hawaii is, just go further north, and that's where we are.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to take another quick one from YouTube, and then we're going to head back to La Vie Live. Please do keep them coming, folks. We'd love to hear from you all. where do you find your plankton? Like, is there a specific region of the ocean that you're able to bring them up? Is it a specific depth that you bring them up? Anything you can share for us on where you collect those samples?
Great news about plankton is they're found everywhere, just depending on which species you're after. So some will live in the deep, deep ocean, and we get to do some really deep bongo casts if the weather allows us to. So sometimes we'll take our bongos down to 1,200 meters. So basically a quarter of what we would take our rosette down. And so we get some really weird species in those really deep depths. And then we always do a cast of 250 at each of our major stations. And so those are the plankton that we're most familiar with, is the ones that live in the upper 250. And then if we're lucky, we get to do the deep casts where we might see what those weird deep species look like. And often we'll get some really funky fish, some really funky jellies, and some different copepods, amphipods, and those kinds of guys. So they each have their own little niche.
Yeah, how neat is that? And I want to stress too, for any classes that might be keen, we just did a program on collecting some samples in the ocean with the Falcor as well. So a nice complement to today's program if you just want to learn a little bit more about deep sea sampling in general. Lots today alone. Lavi, we're going to head back to you. Come on in and take us away.
Hi! So I was also wondering, what is the coolest thing you've seen out at sea?
Did you catch that, Chloe?
Sorry, I didn't catch that one. It may have cut out for me.
Yeah. What's the coolest thing you've seen out while at sea? So this could be maybe in your samples. This could be maybe on the ship, seeing something that might be swimming around. What's the best thing you've experienced?
Well, one of my favorite species to see is mola mola, and those are little sunfish. I'm not sure if you've ever seen one of those, but I just think they're so silly and goofy looking. And we've had them come right up to the boat before, give the boat a little kiss, and then just swim away. So those guys are my favorite. I also love seeing sharks and really big waves. I love being out in the big seas. The bigger the better.
We were talking before we went live today with Chloe, and my experience on a ship was that I did not like the big waves because I got horribly, unbelievably seasick. But Chloe is made of sterner stuff than I am, and so she's totally cool with epic rocking and turning and all this other terrifying stuff that happens when you're out in the deep ocean. I also want to stress, you're the only person ever in the history of man to use the phrase little with regards to a mola mola. Everyone should look this up. It's the biggest bony fish on earth. It's a super weird, freaky fish. Everybody should just explore sunfish or mola mola. They tototally rock.
I will say the little one I was referring to was a baby, so it was this big.
That's so cute.
Yeah, but we have had others that are massive, giant
monster,
mola mola.
9 feet long, huge monster fish. They're so cool.
Yeah.
Chloe, if someone wants to be you and get a job on a ship like this, what would you recommend that they take in school to be able to have that opportunity?
Great question. For the most part, I tried to take all the sciences I could when I was in middle school and high school. And then by the time I got to university, I took an Earth and Ocean Science degree, and that was at the University of Victoria. And so that gave me a really good footing in terms of geology and then different types of oceanography as well. So we did chemical oceanography, biological, physical, and geological oceanography. And so really understanding the ocean as a whole system and how it interacts with land as well to get those full global biogeochemical cycles. Ooh. So I would say all the sciences you can, all of the earth sciences you can.
I remember
going out to any beaches or lakes, whatever you've got near you. I just recommend exploring outside and asking questions.
I think it's behind me on the shelf. When I was the age of a lot of our students today, I got a book called Smithsonian Ocean, which is like the greatest visual deep dive into the seas that you could possibly imagine. Just a really cool resource to get you excited about the oceans and exploring them, alongside, of course, our programs here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. While Chloe's getting her audio back queued up, and hopefully she's really good when I bring her back in, we're going to take another quick one from YouTube. Do plankton change into anything over, let's see if we've got her. Do plankton change into anything over time? Do they get bigger? Do they turn into animals that we're more used to? Are plankton, or are plankton just lots of baby things that we see sort of as adults as different creatures? We're good.
Sorry, I'm just moving to a different part of the ship where I might have better connection.
Fingers crossed. Did you catch that?
How are we here?
That's really good.
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Your audio is great. Like if you can hear me, we're good. We're perfect.
Okay, good. Yes, I can hear you now. I think I was just having some Wi-Fi issues in that other.
Listen, the fact that we can do this at all live on a ship in the middle of the North Pacific is very, very cool. So lucky us.
Yeah.
The question was, do plankton change into anything over time? Like are plankton, or are plankton sometimes baby animals that turn into things that we know of as much bigger, larger creatures like sharks or mola or whatever?
Yeah, so the answer is both. So some species will spend their entire lives as plankton. And so that'll be things like copepods and amphipods. And then some species will just have a certain life stage as a plankton. So things like little larval crabs, larval octopus, larval fish, and then eventually they're able to swim against the current. And so then they're no longer considered plankton.
Yeah. Super cool. Thank you so much for that. All right, Lavi, we're coming back to you for another one. Then we're going to take about 2 more from our YouTube audience, and then we'll wrap up from there. Time flies, and you're having fun in these shows. Come on in and take us away. Hey, Lavi.
Hi. So also, how many different kinds of plankton do you catch?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. And unfortunately, I do not have a number for you, but I would say somewhere in the hundreds, potentially even thousands. But I might have to get back to you on that one.
Well, and this is the thing, too, is that when you put a net into the ocean, you catch many, many hundreds of species. Like there's endless little creatures in the ocean. It's really hard to overstate how many trillions of little animals fill our seas. And so every time we can do deep sea expeditions, we find new species that no one's ever found that entire species before, much less individuals. And so it's one of the coolest jobs in the world for getting to explore and find new things on planet Earth. So I really appreciate that question. Thanks, Lavi. Chloe, how many people are on the ship with you? Is there like and where are they from? Are they all Canadian? Or are they coming from all over the place? What's the deal?
So we have about 50 people on this ship, but that includes all of the crew as well. So like I was talking about, we've got engineers, deckhands, navigational crew, and galley staff as well. So I think they encompass about 40 people, and we're the science accompaniment are about 10. So 10 science researchers on board and 40 crew. So it really does take a whole village to get us out into the middle of the ocean and back safely. We also have a nurse on board since we're super far offshore. We need to have a healthcare professional on board to make sure that if anyone has anything medical that needs taken care of, our lovely nurse is going to help us out.
This is true of pretty much
tons of people on board in order to get this work done.
Almost every remote expedition on land, in the water, in Antarctica, they always have medical staff because, again, you never know what could happen, especially when you've got a bigger team. We've got a great question. That's one of our most common ones for sort of sea expeditions. Is just, what do you eat? Can you highlight again? You don't seem to have any scurvy. What is your like when you're on the ship? I love these questions.
Oh man, we get spoiled out here. I always say when I come back, I'm like, oh no, I have to cook again. How horrible. So we're super well taken care of. We get 3 delicious meals a day and snacks. They have a designated pastry chef. So if you've got a sweet tooth, this is the place for you. Our breakfasts are amazing. We get delicious smoothies and homemade muffins, plus like bacon, eggs, sausage, whatever you want, they've got it. And then our meals for lunch and dinner are spectacular as well. I personally eat vegetarian for the most part, so they spoil me with different vegetarian options. I get lots of delicious tofu, curries, you name it. They've made it. We're absolutely spoiled.
I love highlighting this because we work at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants with a lot of epic land.
We also have an entire ice cream freezer. I'll just put that out there.
Great. Super cool. I'm saying when we work with a lot of land and sea expeditions. So land expeditions are like people pouring boiling water into a plastic bag and stirring it up to eat stuff from there. And sea expeditions is like the best food you've ever had in your life. So I love when we get this query. Chloe, it's been so fun to getting to sort of walk around the ship, explore your amazing journey. Such a pleasure to get to work with DFO. Is there any final message you want to leave us with about your journey or anything to excite kids with before we say goodbye?
Sorry, I think I missed the last minute or so.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying we're nearing the end of the broadcast. So is there anything you want to leave us with about your expedition, about your journey before we say goodbye with everyone?
Oh, I just want to thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been a real pleasure to get all of your questions and see some of your faces. And I hope you get to explore whatever ocean is near you, maybe just a lake or a river if that's what you've got around. But I hope you get outside and enjoy.
I'm going right now to my coast. I'm in Cornerbrook, Newfoundland. I'm on the sea, and I think I'm going to go take a look. Thank you so much for joining us. As we do today,
Awesome.
I'm going to say a big farewell. I'm going to welcome in Lavi. If you're on YouTube and you want to scream and yell, you're welcome to as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.